Hello again, here today in the Tier 8 Japanese Premium Heavy Cruiser, Atago. We're on the map Hotspot, and we are in a Tier 10 to 8 game, so we are bottom tier. So spawning today in Domination at decap. We are going to proceed forward into the cap zone. So looking at the teams, no carrier, thank God for that. Atago's AA is pretty poor, 4 DDs per side. And then 3 battleships. Overall, pretty light on tier 10s. Looks like 10s and 8s only without any tier 9s. Just the Azuma and Alaska, which is pretty unusual. So, we're doing a refeature of the Atago. I've been struggling to get my stupid Republic tokens on her because teams have been acting a bit difficult. In a second, let's just make sure it's recording. Sorry about that. But anyhow, just going over her basic features, she features the standard excellent Japanese rudder shift, good concealment, 9.3 kilometers, puts her at second best at the tier, tied with the Cleveland, and just behind the Edinburgh in terms of her tier 8 classmates. She might also be tied with or close with the newly released Bayard. The Bayard is pretty stealthy overall. Now I'm just gonna use that 9.3 concealment to pull up to the cap and see what we find. So now the Atago has the standard Miyoko layout. That is 10 203mm rifles, 3 in the front, 2 in the back. It does in fact have an identical setup to the Miyoko with one raised middle turret and one backwards rotating third turret, her C turret that is. Her firing angles are pretty poor, well not horrible angles forward, but pretty poor angles forward relatively speaking. You can get 4 rifles relatively reliably, but your 5th rifle, the C turret, does require you expose quite a bit of broadside to use it. Now we have a lightning spotted out. It was briefly spotted by, I believe, either the shimmy or the gearing. Going in, just taking my pot shots at the GK since I can't shoot the lightning as we pass by. But now he's spotted by the Des Moines radar. So with that in mind, we're going to push right up into the cap. The gearing's over there, the GK's behind cover. Now it looks like he's popping, so I'm going to ready my rifles and open up. Nice 8 shell salvo for 8,000 damage, showing off the Japanese HE. We also set a fire, and it looks like our team's going to dispatch him before the radar's out, so that is an excellent start to the game. With that done, we're going to begin to work on the GK. Now, launching the torpedoes here is a bit risky, but I'm fairly certain the Shimakaze is going to pass us by, or pass the torps by with his 38 knot speed before they reach him. It is, however, notable that it was pretty questionable torps. The GK is obviously going to have his hydro up. There's no way he would push without his hydro in this kind of situation, but there's a sea of torpedoes launched by both the gearing and the Shimakaze. So I'm just going to add my torps to the soup and make it more difficult to dodge everything. Looks like he is going to take some shimmy torps. This torpedo looks to be on track as well, so I'm going to get 1 torpedo hit. Nothing to shoot at from my current position here. I just want to work on the cap, so I can take some time to go ahead and take it. Looks like someone's taking our cap, so we're going to have to go back and deal with that possibly. But first, we got to finish up with the cap here and work down the GK. So now I'm going to launch my fighter. There's no carrier in this game, but I'm launching the fighter to get vision on the GK, and hopefully my teammates can dispatch him, because as the Atago, like all Japanese cruisers, has a raised citadel. It's pretty easy to access. The belt armor on the Atago is actually surprisingly impressive, but it's not going to stop GK shells at 5 kilometers, so there's no way I'm sticking my butt out there. So hopefully, just with the fighter spotting, my teammates get brave enough to push in, and looks like they were able to do just that. So we're going to finish capping here before I jump out of the cap. And then afterwards we'll see from there. Might engage the North Carolina or the Des Moines, but I am going to pull out of the cap towards C, or it looks like my Akazuki's taking A, so I'm going to move towards C now. So we got vision on the NCal, he's just pushing right up. So he's pretty close at 9.8 kilometers when we spotted him and closing, but he is behind an island, so I don't need to worry about him for a while, and it looks like the Des Moines disengaged. So you saw there that salvo on the Lightning, showing off the impressive Japanese HE. So like all 203mm armed Japanese heavy cruisers starting from the Furutaka, the Atago does have the Japanese feature of having destroyer dispersion on her 203mm rifles, which means she's extremely accurate with her shell placement. So even against a small target like a destroyer at close to medium ranges, you can pretty much get almost all your shells on target every time, so long as you aim correctly. Now the Atago does pay for her heavy broadside weight of 10 rifles with heavy Japanese HE with her reload. She has a long 16-second reload. You really don't see too many cruisers with that kind of reload these days. We've seen the release of a lot more light cruisers and even more recent heavy cruisers such as the now Tier 8 Baltimore or the Charles Martel have reloads closer to 10 seconds, 11 seconds. So the Atago does have a bit of an archaic reload, but in spite of that, she's still a rather powerful ship because of her consumable layout. So you'll notice here that unlike her tech tree tier mate, the Mogami, she has a heal. So this is a standard cruiser heal, comes with 2 charges base, 3 with premium consumables, and 4 with superintendent. And so with your fairly beefy 40,000 base health, I have survivability expert. This is my ranked Zhao captain. You'll notice the Yamato banner here. So each heal charge heals for a fairly good chunk, 13% I believe it is. Can't check because it's a replay unfortunately. So you're looking at an extra 20,000, 24,000 health there, so not insubstantial amount. As we pull away, where I'm just using my AP, the Des Moines is giving me nice perfect broadside. So Japanese HE is so potent to the point where in a lot of situations you just stick to HE because it's a lot less finicky, but in situations like this when someone's just giving you perfect broadside, it's hard not to use the accuracy to slam people in the side. So nice easy kill there. Finish off the Des Moines, interrupt his duel against the Des Moines and Bismarck. He was going to lose anyway, but might as well expedite his passage to the underworld. Now with that said, North Carolina is shooting someone else, so easy enough to just switch on to him. A nice fire on the first salvo, so Japanese HE, in addition to having high alpha, has great fire chance. Note that there's an Akazuki here, so soon enough we might have to worry about him. There is a Shimikaze between myself and him though, so if he does push toward me and attempt to make a close range torpedo run, the Shimi should spot him out for me and give me more than enough warning to start maneuvering. With that said, we're going to start to continue to work down this North Carolina from range, and we're going to push into sea. So we have we are targeted by one person, but it does not appear to be in North Carolina, so I'm assuming it's the Akazuki. So he's looking at me with his guns, but he doesn't appear to be looking at actually shooting me. He is in smoke, so I find it kind of odd. Flicking over to my torpedoes here, just because I should be in range of him now, so I'm just going to torp the smoke, make sure if he stays in it he's going to possibly eat them as I burn down what's left of North Carolina. Now he does pop from the smoke. He's at 8.2 kilometers, so his torpedo range is 10 kilometers, so I do need to be wary, but for now I can just take my time and line up my shots on him. So as you saw there, I had to turn my turrets all the way around after engaging North Carolina onto the Akazuki, and it did take a fair while. My front guns fired almost 2 salvos before my guns that had to swing all the way around my rear turrets, that is, finally were able to engage. So that is part of the Japanese cruiser traits. We do have fairly sluggish reloads. Now I don't have anyone spotting this Akazuki for me, so unfortunately it looks like he's going to disengage. I am going to take the cap though, and oh, okay, he's opening up for some god-awful reason. I don't think you should be farming defended ribbons when you're at 17 health, friend. So nice easy kill there. And we are going to take the cap. Now we've secured map control. We took that cap back earlier. The Akazuki did manage to push out the Shimikaze, and from the chat it looks like he has RPF, so he's just chasing down the Shimikaze. So hopefully it goes well. The Akazuki is a pretty slow tier 8. I am in fact faster than him even. The Atago is an extremely swift tier 8 cruiser. She does 36.5 knots with the speed flag, so you can easily run down to 32 knot Akazuki. Similarly, the Shimikaze has just 38 knots, so she can easily control the pace of the engagement. Here, as we push back north to move towards A, we see the Azuma. The Azuma is covered in 25mm of armor. I have 203mm rifles, which means I have about 33mm of penetration, which means I pen him all over. Unfortunately, my aim's a bit off, so I do fail to hit him with any of the shells. Nevertheless, I'm going to push up with my gearing and the Fantastique and support my Azuma. Now keep in mind we have a Shimikaze here which hasn't been spotted for a while, so we do have to be careful of torps sailing in from the south of the cap. My Akazuki does manage to dispatch the Shimi over here in the north, but as I was saying, we do have to be cautious. Oh, traded though. Not the greatest. So far I've had a fairly tame game. Not too many people shooting at me, even though I'm bottom tier in this game, which is a bit of a pity, not really showing off too much of my durability. But that's alright. Now as I'm popping his spotter as he comes up, he's pretty broadside here, but he's low enough to the point where I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to use my HE. I know my HE pens him all over. Of course, if I hit his belt or turrets, I am going to get shatters, but 6 HE shells for 4,000 damage is not the disaster, and he's already beginning to angle, so at this point it's better that I have HE loaded. Take a nice bot shot. Sadly only 3 shells land. Several of my shells splash. He's getting chased toward, but he did dispatch my gearing. Ooh, nice dodge. Some great torp beats there. Gonna continue to shell him. However, with the angle that he's at, looks like my aim is a bit off. He's firing AP, huh? So Azuma does not have large enough rifles to overmatch 25mm of armor with her AP. However, I wasn't quite angled enough there against the Azuma's 310s, which have a fair bit of penetration, so I did take a 4,000 damage pen. Not going to bother to heal here, I'm going to just make use of my adrenaline rush as we engage the Cleveland. He looks pretty broadside. But again, the Cleveland's pretty thinly armored and he's so low that there's no point in risking using my AP and perhaps getting overpenned, so I'm just going to continue to shell him with my Japanese HE. You see there another nice tight salvo, and at this range it's really hard to miss. Easy cracking. So there's a nice free heal for me, so much for using the adrenaline rush. And now there's only 2 ships left. Shimikaze, that reclaimed B-cap, and the Yoshino. So I'm going to slow down here, obviously. I want to take this gap before I proceed. No one's spotted anyway, and the enemy Yoshino is a moron. And this is why you don't torp from behind your teammates. Just like that torp I did earlier at decap, extremely risky. Using your long-range Yoshino torps and just throwing them out willy-nilly can be extremely risky too. Now I did close into the Yoshino's 11-7 concealment range, so he's running concealment module. No Euro builds here today. Gonna switch to AP because he's giving a fair bit of broadside with my expert loader. Unfortunately, I did not reverse to give quite enough of an angle, so I'm gonna hold my fire. In order to fire all 5 of my rifles, I do have to give a fair amount of broadside, so it's somewhat risky. So I prefer to just one-shot him. Unfortunately, though we got a nice 5,700 salvo with the AP, we were unable to get any citadels. So I guess even though I can pen him at this range, don't quite have enough penetration with the 203s to pen through the Yoshino's belt. One more speculative AP cell, and I'm going to switch over to HE. 3k, not bad, but not great. Now using HE, so if he has 30 millimeters of plate on the middle, unlike Azuma, his little sister, and 25 at extremities. But no, okay. We got pretty close to finishing him, but unfortunately someone else finished him off, but that's quite alright. Now that was a replay, so I'm just gonna pull up the screenies. Let me just move this up. Okay, that's not working. 1 second. Huh. I was really hoping this would work a lot better. Well then, 1 second. Let me just make a new scene. Let me add a window capture for Chrome. Recording, please. Okay, that's pretty tragic. Well, you can't see what I'm seeing, so I'm just going to go back client side, I suppose. But all in all, in terms of battle performance, we did do 113,000 damage. With 114 shell hits, 1 torpedo strike, 1 plane shot down a spotter plane, 5 kills, 10 fires, 2 citadels, 1 captured ribbon, 2 assisted in captured ribbons, and 1 spotting ribbon. And if we go over to the team score, we had just about 2,800, sorry, base experience. We were, of course, bottom tier, so we get a lot more experience. So we were fortunate enough to get a nice top experience. The next highest experience is the Akazuki, who chased Shimakaze at 1,681. So I would say we did a pretty good job. If we go to the detailed report, wise, so 113,000 damage. Of that, 80,000 damage was from the main battery, 60,000 in HE, high explosive, 20,000 in AP, 11,000 in torpedoes, and 21,000 in fires. So, as with most Japanese cruisers, the majority of our damage came from HE and fires. That is pretty typical, you will find. Ooh. Okay. That is interesting. Anyhow, looking in port. So this is the Atago. I have my 19-point Yamato Commander. So this is my ClanWars build. So in terms of build-wise, I took priority target, and then expert marksman for the sluggish turret reverse, then superintendent for the extra heal, then concealment. From there, your build can vary to pretty much whatever you want, but I do recommend taking adrenaline rush for your standard 12. And then Japanese cruisers are not particularly picky. So this is a captain shared with my Zao. So on both the Zao and Atago, because of their long reloads at 13 and 16 respectively, the 4 modules, I like taking expert loader, so that's 13. And then from there, I'd probably go for last stand. The Zao doesn't lose rudder that much, but the Atago's rudder is pretty fragile. And so this will keep you going when you take a heavy hit, take a citadel from any overmatching battleship shells, whatnot, and keep you at least somewhat maneuvering if you burn your damage control on a fire or such. And then from there, survivability expert, this is just to eke out every last bit of HP because of the way you play alone on a flank frequently when you deploy the Atago or Zao. And lastly, expert or preventative maintenance. In terms of alternative captains, I have a couple more. Is my def AA, yeah. So this is my manual AA Azuma / Atago captain. In case carriers ever get introduced back to competitive, this is probably the build I'd run if there are carriers. So again, priority target, expert marksman, superintendent, concealment expert, adrenaline rush, then go back for manual AA in order to get a little more oomph out of your AA, and then expert loader and last stand. So instead of taking PM and SC, you take manual AA. And one last build variation, probably another competitive build, is replacing the manual fire control for AA. You replace that with RPF. And RPF, or radio location as it's called now, I guess, lets you better gauge the location of destroyers or enemy cruisers, and helps keep you from getting jumped or surprised when you're playing alone on the flank. So going back to the Atago herself, she has a pretty standard consumable layout. As I said though, she has a heal which heals for 240 HP per second. In this case I have taken my survivability expert off, so this is just the stock HP. So that's 240 per second for 28 seconds, and then she has access to a fighter, and then you can take Def A or Hydro. For competitive right now, for the upcoming clan battle season, obviously you take Hydro, but for randoms I prefer defensive fire. Module wise, very standard. Main armaments modification 1, and then steering gears. If you want, you can run Def AA mod or Hydro mod here. I'd probably recommend Hydro over Def AA because the Def AA is pretty mediocre. You really only take Def AA to just dissuade same tier carriers. Against a tier 10 carrier, you're not going to do anything. The 1942 AA suite of the Atago isn't particularly strong. And then I take AA mod 1 here. For ClanWars, probably switch it over to aiming systems. But cruisers are so accurate, I rarely take aiming systems unless I have to, so a bit of a flamu thing I suppose, but I take AA guns modification 1. And then naturally steering gears to improve my Japanese rudder shift. Propulsion could also be okay, but in Japanese cruisers you do want to stay on the move, so there's a lot less incentive to take propulsion. And then lastly, obviously concealment systems. Now if you're playing in randoms only, there is some argument for taking steering gears modification 3. Can make for some pretty fun open water shenanigans, but for competitive you probably do want to keep your concealment down to 9-3. Now armor wise, the Atago is pretty special for tier 8 cruisers. She shares the same 25mm fore end and aft end, that's pretty typical. And she still has a 25mm upper belt. However, she has a fairly good belt for a cruiser. 102mm is not great, but it's not awful. But the important part is up here. So if you see here, on the Mogami has a uniform 25mm at fore and aft, and a 25mm strength deck. So you see 25mm, 25mm, and then obviously 16mm superstructure. And then the Mogami has this tiny 30mm strip right here, which they call armor belt. And this is the only part of the Mogami outside of the Citadel belt that can bounce 16-inch, so that is 406mm. What are your classmates, like North Carolina and Alabama Vladivostok shells. So the Mogami is otherwise covered in 25mm deck all over, which means any plunging shells, such as from a North Carolina or Alabama or Massachusetts, are going to punch straight through this and then punch into your Citadel. Very easy to overmatch a Mogami and just punch right through. The Atago, on the other hand, is a bit unique amongst the tier 8 cruisers. She has a 41mm middle deck. And what this means is that you can bounce any battleship shells that are thrown at you, even Yamato shells, because 41mm is greater than 32, which means you basically can bounce a lot of shit as long as you angle properly. So the Atago is abnormally tanky. The Baltimore has 27mm, So she gets to bounce. Baltimore is probably another good pick for the upcoming clan battle season, so you're probably going to be seeing a lot of that. So Baltimore's covered in uniform 27mm plating, which does mean she does have 27mm upper belt and 27mm deck armor, so that's slightly up armored compared to the Mogami. But it's still not that impressive. It bounces any of the 15-inch guns, so that is the 380s, so that's the Richelieu, Gascon, am I missing anybody? And Monarch. But still not enough to bounce 406s like the Atago can. And then Cleveland's a uniform 25, just like the Mogami, I'm fairly certain. But just for veracity's sake, just go over 25, 25, 25. Yep, so Cleveland's a uniform 25. And then if we go over to the tech tree, pretty sure Chapayev, I don't own the Chapayev right now, so we're going to have to use the tech tree. Chapayev is going to be a uniform 25. That does not change with the B-hull, so no worries. 25 deck, 25 upper belt, and 25 fore and aft. The Hipper / Eugen is going to be 27. So just like the Baltimore, she can bounce 380s, but no dice for the 406s. The Edinburgh is going to be extremely squishy, probably, what, 19? 16? It's 19 or 16. Okay, it's 19. So 19 means the Edinburgh bounces 203s, unlike her lower tier cousins, the Fiji, who has 16mm of external plating, so you can punch right through with cruiser AP into the nose. The Edinburgh is able to bounce that, but in terms of deck, oh, it's actually impressive. So in terms of deck, she's 19 on the extremities, but then up here in the raised center, she does have a 51mm strip, so that's actually pretty nice. It's good to know about that. So she can actually bounce BBAP off her middle deck, surprisingly. But overall, the large areas and the general vulnerability still make her much squishier. And lastly, the Charles Martel. Oh, I wish I could look at the Bayard. Unfortunately, I cannot access the model while in client, so we're going to have to do with that. Is a uniform 25. And of her classmates, the only other tier 8s with a heal are the Edinburgh with her 51mm strip and super heal, but much squishier overall, and the Prinz Eugen, who has 2 less rifles, much worse HE, and has a whopping 11.7 concealment, so Prinz Eugen's not going to be winning any flank concealment battles. So overall, because of that, when you consider all the things that the Atago has going for her, she's probably, generically speaking, the tankiest tier 8 cruiser, and definitely one of the top picks for a flanker. Now, in recent times, or the last time we saw competitive at tier 8, we did see a supplantation of the Atago's position with the Charles Martel, which has since received a reload booster as well in addition, although she did get a slight main battery reload nerf in compensation. So we'll see. It may be that the Atago becomes redundant, because the Charles Martel fills most of her roles. She can't do the flank stealth thing, of course, because the Charles Martel is much less stealthy. But nevertheless, the Atago has an enormous hit point pool, great alpha, great concealment, good torp angles, kind of Yoshino-esque. And so, definitely a great asset to have for your team for upcoming ClanWars, and quite the beast. Anyhow, so that was my Atago overview and guide. Sorry about that black screen section in the middle. I was casting off replay rather than a game or live game, so unfortunately we did have that short segment. But I hope this gave you some insight into how the Atago performs and behaves. And maybe it'll help you with your upcoming clan battles, who knows. Hope you enjoy. Cheers.